Hi again, I'm Adam. Welcome back to Ingvid.com. Today's lesson is a little bit tricky. The reason I say it's tricky is because we're talking about specific words that are often interchangeable, that are often used in the same situations or same meanings. I'm talking about small versus little, big versus large, tall versus high. Some students asked, what's the difference between them? I'll do my best to explain the difference between these words. First thing, and the most important thing that you need to remember about these words is that yes, they are synonyms, means they have almost the same meaning. What makes the difference in how to use them is always going to be context. Okay? A lot of the difference in how to use these words depends on the context they are being used in. Some expressions take this word or that word and not the other, for example. In some situations, the meaning is very different depending on which word you use. Okay? So we're going to start with small and little. Okay? The main thing to remember, and in most cases, the biggest difference, when we talk about small, when we use small, we talk about size, the size of something or its dimensions. Dimensions are length, width, height, depth, etc. Or intensity, okay, when we talk about the intensity of something. So first of all, the thing to remember about this, we're talking about physical size. When we describe something as small, generally we mean physically small. Something physical is small. But again, sometimes we can use little to talk about the physical size of something. So for example, somebody has small hands or somebody has little hands. The nuance is a little bit different, and this is what you have to be careful about. Nuance. If somebody has small hands, it means generally physically small. But if somebody has little hands, it has more of the idea that he or she can do less with their hands. True, not true, I don't know. I'll leave that up to you. But just remember there's a slight nuance in difference. But if you look at somebody and say, oh, he has such little hands, or if you say, oh, that person has such small hands, most people will get the same idea. But again, context might tell you it's a little bit different. Okay, when I talk about intensity, again, it's usually something physical, like somebody has a small voice. If somebody has a small voice, sometimes it's a little bit hard to hear them. Did you hear that? Did you hear my small voice? Or do you hear my big voice now? But we'll get to that after. Usually we use little with uncountables. Money, time. I have a little money, not small money. Small money means, like in Canada, we have a dime, 10 cents. It's a very small coin, but that's not what we're talking about. A little money, when we're talking about quantity. So usually when you talk about uncountables, things you can't count, and you're not talking about physical size, because it's not something physical. Physical things you can count. Uncountables, not physical things, you usually use small. If we talk about someone's stature, now what does stature mean? It means more or less like how people view this person or this thing. So look at the example. For example, if I say a small man versus a little man. A small man means usually physically small, maybe short, maybe skinny, whatever. A little man is something, we don't care about this person, right? He's small, I can step on him because doesn't have stature. A big man has a bit more stature. A large man is a large man, but we'll get to that in a second. When we talk about adjective of degree, when we use little almost like an adverb. So I'm a little tired, not small tired, a little tired. Or if you say, and that means just a little bit, right? Not a great amount. But if I say I'm a little irritated, means like, somebody made me irritated. Again, context will usually tell you that little irritated means very irritated. I'm a little irritated, means I'm pissed off, to be honest. But we use little to make it softer, okay? But, and another thing, again, this usually comes back to countables or uncountables. When we're talking about countables and we want to talk about the quantity, like how much we have, we say we have a small amount of something, or we have a small number of somethings. Again, you usually use amount with uncountables, you'll use number with countables, but for both you can use a small amount, a small number of. But you would say a little with the uncountables. I have a little time, I have a small amount of time to give you. I have a small number of friends. But here you won't use little, you will use few for the countables. I have a few friends. Okay? So again, if you mix the two, small or little, most people will understand the same thing that you want them to understand. But if you want the detailed differences, this is basically it. There are other small, various degrees of difference, very, very nuanced, but again, context will usually make that clear which one you should use or which one or why the one that is being used, okay? It's not as clear when we talk about big and large. Let's look at that now. Okay, so now we're going to look at big and large. This is a little bit more complicated because big and large are almost the same, have almost the same meaning. There's not many situations where you can't interchange them, okay? Some people think that large is a little bit more formal than big, but not necessarily. Big and large can both be used to talk about size and dimensions. We mentioned dimensions before, but again, it's all about context. Okay? Then again, the nuances that come from the context will tell you which one you should or shouldn't use. So for example, if you talk about the big boss, the big boss is basically like the CEO, right? He's the president, the top guy. He's going to be the big boss. He's at the top. He's the most. If you say the large boss, sounds a little bit strange if what you mean is CEO or president. If you say the large boss, I'm thinking the fat one. Okay? There's 2 or 3 bosses. There's the CEO, there's the president, there's a COO, etc. You're talking about the large boss, I'm thinking about the big burly guy. Okay? So I wouldn't really say big boss if I mean heavy guy. I wouldn't say large boss if I mean top guy. Now, let's look at this one. You're talking about your brother. My big brother. What does that mean? Generally, it means older. My older brother, my big brother. Okay? As if you talk about your younger brother, my little brother. He's not physically small, he's younger. Okay? So it's the same idea. If you say my large brother, again, you're talking about a big boy, bigger than you anyway. And that's why you think he's large. And again, here we go about with amount or number, describing a quantity. I would say a large number of people came to the party. A large number of stars are in the sky, whatever. It's not a good example, but it's an example. I wouldn't say a big number. It just sounds a little bit strange. It's not very common to say a big number. Again, not wrong. If you say a big number of people came, everybody will understand. It's fine, but not commonly heard. But if you talk about amount, again, more common, a large amount of whatever, a large amount of money was spent, but you could say a big amount. Most people prefer to say large, it just sounds a little bit better for whatever reason. Now, again, here you go, context. Large business versus big business, okay? Big business, you're talking about a big company or a big industry, okay? Large business means you do a lot, there's a lot of traffic, a lot of trading, a lot of sales and incoming, outgoing revenues, etc. So I can't tell you exactly there's a difference between big and large. It's about context, which one sounds better, okay? You can say a big house, you can say a large house. They will mean exactly the same thing. So basically be careful about the context. If it doesn't feel right, change it to the other one. But don't worry about using one or the other. And if you're doing a test like TOEFL or IELTS, big and large in the essay will get you the same points. Large is not a fancy word. It's just another way of saying big, okay? So the best I can do for you with these two. Small and little, they have some variations. Big and large, not so much. Now let's take a look at tall and high. Okay, so let's look at our last one here, tall and high. This one should be a little bit more straightforward, okay? When we talk about tall things, generally it's always about physical things. Not always, there are certain exceptions, but mostly it's about physical things. And if you want to remember, think about things that are standing, okay? So a person, like for example myself, I am standing here and I am this tall. If somebody this tall is next to me, then I am tall. If somebody is here, then I am short. But it doesn't matter. It's about talking about a person, and we're talking about tall or not tall. We don't say a person is high. If you say a person is high, he's probably doing something very different than studying English. Anyway, if we talk about high, generally speaking, we talk about above average, above others like it, okay? So we're talking about high ground. Okay, so let's say you have, this is sea level. This is called high ground. It's above the other ground around it, above sea level, generally speaking. We also use high to talk about ideas, things that are ideas. They're not real, they're not physical. High cost, the high cost of living, a high price. We would never say tall about these things because there's nothing to compare them to. They're just an idea and they're high, okay? Position, for example, an official in government. He's a high official, means he has a very high rank. Or we talk about high culture. People who go to the opera and drink champagne and drive in limousines, they live in a slightly higher lifestyle, higher culture, etc. Something when you're reaching for a peak. So for example, traveling, the reason you don't want to travel in summer is because it's high season. Prices are very high then. We don't use tall for any of these things, okay? But in some situations, you can use either one. If you describe something or someone, let's say, for example, he is 6 feet high. Sounds a little strange. You would say he is 6 feet tall. But if you're talking about like a wall or a door, the door is 6 feet high, 6 feet tall. Both are okay, okay? Now, sometimes people mix these up. If we're talking about a building, some people say it's a very tall building, like a World Trade Center is a very tall building. Some people say it's a very high building. Again, it depends which one you want to use. I personally would use tall building because a building is standing. Somebody built it, it is standing. If you're talking about a mountain, I would say it's a high mountain. You could say it's a tall mountain, but a mountain isn't standing. A mountain is sitting. It's been there forever. It's sitting there. Nobody put it there. It's not moving. So I consider it sitting and therefore it's high. It's higher than the ground or the other mountains around it. Okay? Again, context. Don't forget that. It's always about context. Although the distinctions here are a little bit more clear. Big and large, not so much. Small and little, yes and no. Tall and high, more clear cut. Okay? But again, if you need more practice, go to ingvid.com. There's a quiz there you can try out. Also, don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel and come back again and take some more lessons with us. Thank you.